Hello again, YouTube. This is Drizzle. I just acquired a third R9 Fury card. This one, as you can see, is Gigabyte brand instead of Sapphire, but they were sold out of Sapphire on Amazon, and I didn't feel like waiting for them to get more in stock, and I just kind of wanted to screw around with the three-way Crossfire setup, so I ordered this instead. And as you can see, it's the Wind Force edition. It's a pretty massive card, although I don't think it's as large as the Sapphire cards, but it looks like it's in pretty good shape. This is also a refurb from Amazon. This is not a brand new card, so if I have a problem with it, I can still send it back, though. That's, rather than try to find one on Craigslist, which I did look around, but I didn't see anything. Nobody seems to be selling a lot of these kind of cards. Like the Fury and the Fury X seem to be very hard to find. I was thinking of getting a Fury X or a Nano and trying to crossfire it with my two regular Furies, because I know that they're compatible. They all use the same GPU. It's just like they have a different number of shader core or stream processors. Sorry, but again, couldn't find anything anywhere else, and Amazon was mostly sold out, or like the prices are really ridiculous on these cards. I'm not sure what the deal is with it. Maybe it's because Bitcoining is so popular, and these are very good for Bitcoin mining. So I guess that's the only thing I can think of as to why they cost so much. But some of them were like, this was like, retail was listed like $550, which it is not worth. But I got it for $250, so that's fine. As the same price I got for my other cards, although those were new, and this one, like I say, is a refurb. So $250 for this wasn't like an amazing deal, but it's not bad. So what I'm going to do is shut down my PC here and try putting this in with the other two and see how it works. I'm not 100% sure that it's even going to work because my board, the layout being what it is, it has more than enough slots, but these cards are very large and kind of hard to fit three of them in there in in an orientation that's going to allow it to work. At least with AMD, you don't need a Crossfire bridge anymore, which allows you to kind of do things like that and spread it out better. But, if the chipset doesn't like it for some reason, it's still not going to work. And if it doesn't work in three-way, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw this in my Alienware graphics amplifier and use it with my laptop, or sell it back off, or trade it back in for something else. I don't know yet. But we're going to give it a try here. So I'm going to pause the video here and get the computer shut down and opened up, and we'll try to put this in with the other cards and see what happens. So I'm going to pause for a sec. Well, you can see I got all three cards in there. I got to find some power cables now. I thought I had more in here, but I know I have the original box. My power supply came in with the extra power cables, so hopefully I've got enough to set this up, or this will be a wash, but I'm pretty sure I do. You can see definitely the size difference in the cooling and so forth on the Sapphire cards versus these Wind Force cards, but otherwise they're pretty much the same thing. So I'm going to pause again here, and I'm going to switch over. I should say I'm going to pause, and I'm going to look in the box the power supply came in and try to get the additional cables for this, and then set it up so I can actually turn it on. But I will be right back. Alright, you can see I do have it wired in there. I mean, it looks a little cockeyed and wedged. It's kind of touching that hard drive, but it feels like the fans can still move. This is really not particularly ideal. I might try to find another place to put that hard drive so it frees it up. But I do have a lot on that drive, and I use it to store like my video output files when I make recordings for YouTube. And I have a lot of, I actually do have a few games on it. But anyways, and as you can see, like I had to get kind of ghetto with my my wiring as well, because my power supply actually ran out. And this is like a ridiculous power supply. This is an EVGA Supernova 1300 watt fully modular Gold Plus certified supply, and I'd already used up all my other wiring for the previous two cards, and then one of the wires, actually, like, you don't see it here, maybe you can see it down there, but that little bit of red down on the bottom left, the board takes another 6-pin power connection to give more power to the PCI Express slots in case you decide to run the card setups like this. So anyways, as you can see, we do have it all wired up, and I'm going to stand it back up here in a second and try powering it on and see if it works or not. So I'll be right back. Okay, I got it booted back up. I don't know if you can read too well in the upper right hand corner there, but you can see the first slot is running at PCI Express 3.0 16 lanes. The second slot is empty. The third slot is reading at X8 3.0. The fourth slot is empty, which actually this board, the fourth slot, only runs at 2.0 lanes, and if you populate the M.2 slot, it doesn't do anything. And so as you can see, the fifth slot it's reading is actually my M.2 slot, and it's running at only 2.0 lanes, which is one reason I don't like this motherboard. EVGA gave me some bad information when I bought it, or I wouldn't have bought this board, but whatever. So that's using my NVMe drive, and then you can see the final slot down at the bottom is running at X8 again. I don't know why that's only running at 8X. It should be running at 16X. One of those cards should be able to run at 16, but for some reason 2 out of the 3 are running at 8. But as long as they're all working, 8X is really, like, you can't tell the difference right now between 8X and 16X for GPUs. It's basically the same thing. So as long as that's working, I'm going to assume, hopefully, that Crossfire will work, or at least that Windows should definitely be able to see all 3 cards. So we'll see here in just a moment if it'll boot into Windows and if we can get Way Crossfire enabled. I actually tried booting it up a minute ago before I was recording again, and it wasn't detecting the card in the third slot, and the reason was I forgot. But my motherboard has these little switches on it you can physically turn on or off a PCI Express slot, and I had physically shut off the third slot a while back because I was trying to troubleshoot a problem with a different set of GPUs, and you know, as a suggestion from EVGA, they said try shutting off that slot. So it was still shut off, and I was like, why isn't it seeing this card? But that was why. So we'll see momentarily here if it well, it looks like it's doing something. Probably playing with drivers or something. Okay. I don't know if you can hear the third fan. It definitely sounds different than the other 2 fans did. Says Crossfire is available. It's reading all 3 cards. Let's go in and see if we can enable it. I think it's in Gaming Global Settings. You can see it lists all the cards. Can't remember which section to enable it in. Usually it just automatically does it. Alright, here we go. Try seeing if it works here. Hope for the best. Cross your fingers. Oh. Well, it's got this ULP. Okay, I remember this before it did this. It says it's enabled though, so all 3 GPUs are enabled for Crossfire. I don't know what temps is going to run at, but this ULPS active is some idiotic problem it has. Like, you have to disable it in the registry. So I'm going to pause for a second while I go try to look up how to do that. I forget. I did it before when I first got these, and I had to do it with to enable it on the second card. It's like, otherwise the second card tries to save power for the system by running in this ULPS's ultra low power state, and when it does that, it's like sometimes in games it doesn't remember to kick in the card, or you get stuttering because it's always trying to save power when it shouldn't be. So I'm going to pause for a minute and go Google that and try to get that disabled in the registry. I'll probably have to reboot after that, so 1 second please. Okay, after restarting it, you know, I don't know if you can read that from here. Let me move this camera up a little bit. I guess I have to do this by hand. I was trying to use my camera stand, but it's not really helping me out here. But you can see it says enabled 3 GPUs, multi-GPU status, and all the frequencies are running at the correct rate. Let's see if this will kick in here. For some reason This is not working in Crossfire for whatever reason. It's only using the main GPU. It says that they're enabled. Let's try running 3D Mark here. Ooh. You know, I don't think it's reading that hard drive. I think that I need to probably try to push that in a little bit further. I think that the card and the hard drive are butting up against each other, and Steam unfortunately is installed on that drive, so I'm gonna have to probably reboot here. I'm gonna pause again. One sec. Okay, so I had to actually physically swap that big hard drive and one of my solid state drives that I have in the back of my case around with each other's positions, so that would make more room for the video card. But now that that's all done, everything fits, everything runs nicely. Three-way or Crossfire seems to be enabled. I already disabled it, but it's telling me here that it wants me to disable FreeSync because that can mess with your benchmark, which does make sense. So I'm going to see if it actually picks up and uses all three GPUs in this. 3D Marks, or excuse me, GPU Z says they're all enabled, so it should work. But we'll see here in a minute. Hopefully no shenanigans. Sure it's taking it a while to load. Alright. Well, I'm going to have to add GPU 3 to my Riva Tuner display. I forgot to do that, but we should be able to tell by the frame rate if it's doing it correctly or not. I don't think it's working right, because 2 cards does better than this. That should be doing way better than that. Not sure what the deal is, but I mean, 2 cards before was getting like 100, up into the 180 frames a second range, so something is clearly not working right here. I'm gonna have to fiddle around with it here. I'm gonna pause this and I'm gonna stop the test and screw some things. I'll be right back. It looks like I got it working here. Although for some reason MSI Riva Tuner is not reading any of the GPU information right now. There's like a setting, you have to go into additional settings in the Crimson driver suite and then kind of force it to use all 3 GPUs again. Like, in fact, like I told it to use 2 and then switched back to 3 and then loaded up 3D Mark, and suddenly it's like, now it's working. The frame rates are pretty freaking high, you can see. This is all stock frequencies, nothing's overclocked. I don't think I have a lot of headroom for overclocking. I have a 1300 watt power supply, but from what I understand, each one of these cards is 275 watts, but they can sometimes use a little bit more than that, even at stock. So let's just say 300 a piece, 900 watts. My CPU is 140 watts, but it's overclocked to 4.6 gigahertz. So that's probably using 250 plus watts. So we're pretty near dim at the end of, with the rest of the stuff in my system. I've got a lot of solid state drives. I've pretty much capped out without overclocking, even at 1300 watts. So, I'm pretty much limited running at stock. But these frame rates are quite good here. I'm going to go ahead and pause it for a second, and then I'll show you the result when it gets done. Give me 1 sec. Alright, there you go. 26,139, which is really only a couple thousand more than it got with 2 cards. But the frame rates were much higher. I don't know what the deal is, like how this scores sometimes. It doesn't really make sense, the number, compared to the results that you're getting. But like the highest I ever got with my pair of 1080s was like 27,000. And so you figure those cards combined, $1,200-1,300 versus I have 3 R9 Fury cards now for a total of like $750-800. So for $800, you're getting basically the same score as you do for $1,200 to $1,300, at least in a benchmark. Gaming performance is always kind of a toss-up on stuff like this, depending on if the game even supports Crossfire, and then of course like 3-way Crossfire. I know SLI at least, 3-way SLI was not well supported in much of anything. But I'm going to try to load up Witcher 3 here in a minute and see if I can force it to work in that and see what frame rates I get. So I'm going to pause 1 second and try that. But it definitely seems to be working now. That's cool. Be right back. Alright, well, I figured out why I was having trouble getting it to work. It doesn't appear to be compatible for some reason with MSI Afterburner. And so I had to use Fraps to do an overlay for frame rate instead. It doesn't seem like a lot of games are getting like the benefit of the third card. This game appears to only be running with 2, because this is like the same frame rate I got with 2 cards. But obviously, at least it still works. Or like regular, it figures out that it can only use 2 cards, and I think only 2 cards are probably being utilized. I can't see my GPU utilization because when I turn on Riva Tuner and MSI Afterburner, 3-way SLI stops working correctly. I was able to get, like, I went right back and tried 3D Mark again, and it wasn't working again. And as soon as I shut off Afterburner, suddenly everything was fine, and I got 220 frames a second in Firestrike. But with it on, it's like, for some reason, it's like the GPU utilization hops between one card to the next, and so it's always like you're using one card, but it's like card 1 does frame 1, card 2 does frame 2, card 3 does frame 3, and it just like it cycles utilization, but they're never all being used at one time. I don't know what the deal is with that. It's got to be something incompatible with the software. It works fine with 2 cards, but as soon as I had 3 enabled, it's like no good. But I also tried running it in Skyrim, and that appears to also get pretty much the same frame rate it did with 2 cards. So I haven't actually found a game yet where the 3-way seems to be working. So far it only works in the benchmark. But anyways, it does appear that 3-way Crossfire does work. I'll try to find a game where it actually works and maybe do a video about that. But for right now, it just gets me a higher benchmark score. But it did, score basically the same as a pair of 1080s in SLI with 3 much less expensive GPUs. So if you're looking to just benchmark, it's one way to do it. I haven't tried overclocking them yet, like I was talking about earlier. I'm afraid I don't have enough power to really overclock 3 of these cards. You pretty much need like a 1500 watt or even like a 2000 watt power supply if you really wanted to heavily overclock three Fury cards. So anyways, with that said, this has been Drizzle. Appreciate you watching the channel. If you like this kind of content, please remember to click the like and subscribe button, and I'll be sure to put up another video as soon as I can. Have a great day. Bye.